with that, I'd like to turn this over to George Castiglia and Rutgers. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Introductions. My name is George Castiglia. I am a Master Gardener intern, and I would like to introduce.
I'm Catherine Noon. I'm also a Master Gardener. I graduated in 2015.
Great. Yeah, and she's going to be helping me today. So basically, all the hard questions she's going to take, and I'll take all the easy questions. So in addition to being a Master Gardener, I'm an avid home gardener. I've been gardening for many years. I have my own home, not a large one, but it's a hobby of mine. And I'm also president of my town's community garden in Old Bridge. We're trying to catapult that, this year and next year, and trying to move that along. And so when I was asked to when I was asked to come to this event, and I was told about this grant, and I was told about what was happening here, I immediately jumped at the opportunity, because this is I guess you could call it a passion of mine. I've done this lecture a few times before, and this is something that I really love to talk about. Now, the lecture itself is about an hour 20 minutes. The full one that I do. It's not going to be that long today. As I was saying, I'm going to try to power through a lot of the material, because a lot of the material that I have on these slides gets very detailed, very nitty-gritty. And so if you want a digital copy of this PowerPoint, you can give me your email address at the end of the lecture, and I can send it to you, and you can peruse it at your own pace. But yes.
Is it okay if people move around during the talk and grab food and then come back to the
Oh, yes, absolutely. Move around. I know some people have told me that they have to leave sometime during the lecture. I'm not going to be offended. I won't be offended by that. If you want to throw popcorn at me, I won't be offended by that. So there's a lot of refreshments in the back, a lot of information sheets in the back. So please feel free to get up and take those sheets. And also during the lecture, feel free to ask me any questions, and I'll try to answer to the best of my ability. Catherine will answer to the best of our ability.
Yes. George, again, if people miss you when giving you an email address or vice versa, again, that's our administrator. You can always get in touch with Jen Mayer. Her information is on the town website, and she'll facilitate getting in touch with George if necessary.
Thank you. So I'm going to try to power through these slides. So my full presentation is basically in 3 parts. The first part, I'm talking about what is composting, how does it work, the factors of making good compost. The second is what I'm going to try to concentrate on for the interest of time. I'm going to be talking about different composting methods that you can do. And the third is compost tea. I'm going to omit that today just for the interest of time, but again, compost tea is going to be on the slides, which you can get digitally. So most importantly, what is composting? Simply put, composting mimics the natural decomposition process that is found in nature, by which large organic organisms, plants, trees, animals, whatever you may have it, when they die, they decompose into their simpler molecular parts. Okay, so all of us, all the trees, all the organic matter that we find out in nature are very complex organisms built with long chains of carbon and nitrogen and all these other organic molecules. What decomposition does is that it breaks down these component parts into simpler components, which go into the soil, and then they can be reabsorbed into the next generation of organisms, the next generation of plants, the next generation of animals. Okay, it's very much like a Lion King. Okay, that's basically what composting is. I like the South Park version. You know that. So how does composting work? Essentially, in the soil and in nature, there are organisms at the macro and micro levels that facilitate this breaking down of this organic matter. So at the macro level, you may have animals which scavenge. You will have insects like worms and beetles that will eat and burrow and break apart material. And at the microscopic level, most importantly, are bacteria and fungi, which continue to break down the material into a much much simpler components until we have a product that we call humus, which is coming from Latin for soil, same word that comes from human. Yeah, hummus. Yeah. Not that hummus back there. It's very good. Okay. Humus. Not that hummus. Humus. Same Latin root that we get the word human from. To be human literally is to be wise dirt. So you think of the biblical analogy, with Adam being formed from the soil. So I'm getting into a tangent here. So how does composting work? All you have to know is that there are organisms in the soil and in the environment that facilitate this breaking down, this decomposition process. And what we do as composters, the way that we do our composting, the good factors that we put in, and the composting methods that we use will facilitate and help these organisms do their work. Okay? Okay, I'm going to get to some reasons for why we compost. I'm going to try to power through these slides. Okay? Number one, recycling. Okay? If we use good composting methods, we can reduce the amount of money and the amount of chemical inputs that we put into our soil. So it was talked about before about using fertilizers in your home gardens and on your lawns. If you use compost, you can significantly reduce and even in some cases eliminate the need to go to stores and buy expensive fertilizers, buy expensive soils, garden soil, etc. And this is one of the reasons why I got into composting, because I was sick and tired of going to the big box stores and spending a lot of money getting those products for what essentially you can get for free if you use the proper composting techniques. Okay. Feel free to interject, by the way, if you want to say anything. Yeah, I'm trying to speed through this. If anyone wants to slow down and talk through a point, ask questions, that's perfectly fine, okay? Okay, reducing landfill use. This was talked about before, but what I want you to take away from this is that it is estimated that about 1/3 of the waste which goes into our nation's landfills is organic material that can be composted. Now you might think to yourself that a landfill is essentially just a big compost pile, right? You put all the stuff there, and over time it will decay into soil, right? And the sad truth is that this is not the case. The reason is that most landfills are extremely dense and they are extremely filled with lots of non-biodegradable materials, plastics, what have you, that are forced into a small area. It means that those organic material that's in that landfill won't get the proper oxygen, won't get the proper water, won't get the microorganisms won't be able to work in order to decompose the material. So what happens is that the stuff that's put in a landfill is going to remain in almost pristine condition for a very long time. And in fact, I've heard that people who put core samples within landfills and they take them up, they find actually newspapers that are still readable down below many feet. They find actually food particles that's still recognizable after decades of being in a landfill. So this is one of the reasons why composting is so important. We can reduce landfill waste. Okay, probably most important for us gardeners, improving our soil health. We can reduce the amount of fertilizer and chemical inputs that we put into our soil, which after long periods of time could be detrimental to the health of our soil. If we use proper composting materials and composting methods, you're going to help the structure of your soil, which will retain moisture for a longer time. It will help beneficial bacteria and fungi do their job in the soil. And it's going to create conditions which are more nutrient rich for your plants and for your lawn. Okay. Life of the soil. So a lot of people think that what's out here, what's in our backyards, is just simply dirt. And one of the things that I found out as a Master Gardener, going through the Master Gardener program, is that the soil that we find in our backyards and our lawns is a very, hello sir, come inside. The soil that we find in our backyards is a very important microbiome that takes a very long time to create. So in the case of the soil which you have in your backyard, it may take as much as 500 years to create that good topsoil. And when you look at new residence projects, new commercial projects in which they do development, the first thing that they do is that they come and they scrape off the topsoil first. And the reason they do that is because you can't get topsoil anywhere else except from these development sites. So they're going to take away that topsoil and then they build on top of that. And then they package it and they sell it to gardeners like us. Hello, welcome. What I want you to take away from this slide is that our soil is a very important component, not only for us, but also for our ecology. So let's power through this. Okay. So let's get into the decomposition process. Generally, we speak of 3 phases in which organic material begins to be decomposed. The first is degradations. This is the initial steps of decomposition in which what is, say, plant matter, let's say some kitchen scraps, some vegetables, some fruit that you may have, you'll find that it will become degraded. It will change in color, it will change in texture. It will begin those initial steps of decomposition. You leave out a bowl of fruit for a long time, you know what's going to happen. That's what degradation is. The next is conversion. Conversion in your compost pile means that what was once recognizable plant material, hello, welcome. What was recognizable plant material will begin to convert into a more uniform size and more uniform shape. It doesn't mean that we'll become compost immediately. That's it. Okay. Have a good day. It doesn't mean it's going to become compost immediately, but it's in the middle of that process. And then curing. Curing is when you have what is essentially a uniform shape, uniform size, uniform color, uniform smell that we would call the humus, okay? That we would call a cured and I think you have an example of
there's a bucket
compost.
Patty, hold up. There's a bucket of
Anybody wants
finished
It's
product.
gorgeous,
Cured.
absolutely gorgeous.
Yes, this is what's called a cured product. And if you want to pass it around, now for all intents and purposes, it looks and it feels like soil. It is uniform in shape and size, and you can put this product directly into your lawn, into your garden beds. You'll also find, I would invite you to smell the bucket. Now you might say, why smell the bucket? Yes, it will have an earthy smell to it, but you'll also find that it's not going to have a terrible smell. It's not going to smell like the initial stages of degradation. Okay, it's not going to smell like something that is rotten. It's going to smell something that is very earthy, something that's very healthy. That's one of the ways that you can see that something is cured and very well done compost, is because it has that pleasant earthy smell.
What are the elements?
Elements.
What are the elements?
Elements?
There's carbon and nitrogen.
Yeah, carbon, nitrogen. So I'll get into that in a later lecture, but basically when you have good compost, you're going to have what's called nitrogen-rich materials. These are called the green materials. These are your plant kitchen waste materials, and there's going to be carbon-rich material. These are woody materials, paper, cut up tree limbs. Yeah, what would you like to say?
The leaves, brown. So anything brown is high in carbon. You want your green stuff because it's high in nitrogen. But as far as the elemental analysis of that, that'll go into it.
Okay.
It's all organic materials. So.
Proper location, depending on the composting method you have. If you have a compost pile, which is static, it is best if you keep it in an area of your lawn or your property that is discreet, so that it doesn't look too bad. But it's going to have access to water, either rainwater or close to your spigot if you need to add water to it. And it can't be somewhere that's going to be, it can easily dry out, okay? If you have a compost bin, like some of the examples that we have here, you can keep it near your garden just so that it's easier for you to transfer all the finished compost, all the cured compost, right to your garden beds.
Question in the back here.
So to get to this point, all right, what's the timeline?
It's going to depend on the different composting methods that you use. And if you want to wait just a few minutes, I'm just going to power through some of these slides and we can get to the methods, okay? I apologize if I'm taking a little bit too long. That was a sign. Yeah, so I'm going to try to power through these, so we can get to the fun stuff, okay? What can I compost? Okay, leaves, as was mentioned before. And a very important factor in composting is that we cut up the materials that we put into our compost piles or compost bins, because that will increase the speed by which those materials will degrade. Okay? Grass clippings. It's a very important point. If you have a lawn, when you cut your lawn, it is best that you leave the grass clippings on the lawn, because as it degrades on the lawn, it will release the nitrogen right back into the soil and it will help your lawn health. What you do is that at the end of your mowing season, let's say in early October, maybe late October, the last time you mow your lawn, put a catcher on your lawn mower and take up all those cut grass, and then you can put it right into your compost pile or your compost bin. Okay, so that's what they can do. Yes.
George, the first point that you said about cutting up your leaves, just to make it perfectly obvious, you can do the same once your leaves start coming down. You run over it with your lawnmower a couple of times and throw that in. Yeah, that does tremendously increase the speed of the process. Absolutely. Nothing complex about having to go out and get a new piece of machinery or anything like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Vegetable food scraps, coffee grounds, wood ash, most animal manure. Very important. Do not put pet waste in your compost. Most pet waste is somewhat acidic. Also, it may have some pathogens which are transferable to humans. So you might want to be careful about that. So don't put pet waste in there. If you do use animal manure, make sure that it is an herbivore, i.e. horses, cows, things like that, because they eat only plants. And so when they eat the plants, their digestive system will break down that nitrogen-rich material, and obviously it passes out, and it's very rich material which you can put into your compost bin. I have a secretary in my work. She swears by this. She goes to a horse farm, and she has a bin in the back of the pickup, and she will shovel the horse leavings into the bin, and she'll put it into her garden bed. And she swears by it, and I'm sure it's a very good thing. I'm not going to do that. If you want to do that, that's fine, but I'm not going to do that. Okay, and then we can say most paper today can be composted, because most inks, especially newspapers, are soy-based. One thing you don't put in there are the glossy inserts, glossy magazines. Don't put that in the compost bin because they're treated with chemicals which you might not want to put into your soil.
No wrapping paper.
Oh, wrapping
Christmas.
paper.
Because if you put that in the fire, you see all those beautiful colors come up. That's all the inorganic materials that you don't want in your compost.
Some things not to compost. It's perfectly fine to put wood ash from your fireplace, but don't put any coal or charcoal ashes. Diseased plants. Very important thing. If you do what's called a hot pile, I'll talk about that in a minute, a hot pile and do a proper composting method, there are certain pathogens, harmful bacteria, harmful fungi, which you can destroy in a proper composting method. However, if there is a diseased plant, it may survive that composting process. So you can destroy harmful pathogens, but if you don't do it right, it can still survive and continue on when you put that compost into your garden bed. So if you have a tree limb, if you have a diseased plant that is obviously diseased, the best thing to do is probably to burn it and put the ashes into your compost bin, because burning will destroy the harmful pathogens. Or, unfortunately, you may have to throw it away, in the regular trash. But that's one important caveat with diseased plants. Okay? Meat and bones and dairy. They will attract scavengers, they will attract pests, and it will smell like, well, I'm not going to say what it's going to smell like, but it's going to smell terrible. If you have a compost bin that is sealed, very similar to some of these bins here, you can probably put small amounts of meat and bones in there. But don't put dairy in there because it's going to smell like terrible. Okay? You had a question, sir?
I thought it was no meat ever in composting. Maybe you put one and put dead animals in your compost.
Generally you don't.
Yeah.
A lot of commercial composting that you may get, and sometimes if you get compost from the county, a lot of times what they'll do is they'll take dead deer from the side of the road and they'll put it in these giant compost pits that they have. It will decompose, it will compost, it will degrade, and I'm sure it's fine, but
That's not
Yeah,
for home gardeners.
Yeah, it's not for home gardeners. Okay, that's something that the county does, the gardeners don't do. So if you ever wonder what happens to the poor deer that you see on the side of the road, sometimes they get put into these big compost things. But yes, thank you for the question. Okay, glossy paper we talked about. Okay, weeds. You can put weeds in your compost pile so long as they have not gone to seed. If they have gone to seed, then those seeds could survive the composting process. And when you put it in a garden bed, you're going to have a lot of weeds popping out of that. Okay. I talked about this before. Carbon-rich materials are the brown, dry, woody materials. Nitrogen-rich materials are the green materials, these are the fresh, vegetable materials. Great rule of thumb, for every 1 part nitrogen-rich, put 2 or 3 parts carbon-rich materials. The reason that you do this is because if you want a healthy garden, a healthy lawn, when you put these materials together, it's going to create the correct mix of nutrient-rich material for your plants. Your plants need both nitrogen and carbon. Nitrogen helps in growth. Carbon helps in plant structure. Okay, please come in. There's some snacks in the back and some information packets right there. Thank you. So that's why we need both. Also, a proper mix of materials will create conditions which are conducive for the composition process. If you have just nitrogen-rich materials, it's going to eventually degrade into a mushy, fungus-infested mess. If you have just carbon-rich materials, just woody materials, it's going to degrade very slowly. So that's why you need both, because they will both complement each other. Okay, I saw that.
What?
Factors in creating good compost, proper particle size. As I said, break down your material that you put into your composter. Proper volume. if you want what's called a hot pile, this is a pile which creates heat within the material by the work of the microorganisms working in that compost bin or in that pile. You're going to want a size between 3 cubic feet or 5 cubic feet. Anything smaller than that, you're not going to have proper conditions for microorganisms to work as well for that material. Anything larger than that, organisms at the center of your pile is not going to get the proper moisture and oxygen that they need to work to do their job. And if you have something smaller than that or something larger than that, you're essentially going to have a static pile, which will degrade, but will degrade much more slowly. So if you have a pile in this configuration, you're going to have the optimal conditions to create very rapid composting. Okay?
So for these, I'm just trying to look, I'm seeing 11 cubic foot capacity for the big square one, 10 cubic foot capacity for that one. So you're saying it's actually a little bit bigger than you would want theoretically if you wanted a hot?
Yeah, I mean, it's
Fill it all the way to the top. You want to keep it hot, don't quite fill it all the way, it's a little high. But you got to turn it and aerate it, which I'm sure you're going to go into.
Yeah.
That's how you get water and air into the sun.
Okay.
So obviously, all the microorganisms that are going to do the work of the composting within the pile or within the bin, they need proper water and they need proper air circulation because otherwise, they're not going to be able to thrive in those conditions. So, proper air circulation. Make sure that you turn your pile or turn whatever's in your bin to get oxygen there. I don't know if you have a screw you had before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That corkscrew. Love this corkscrew.
You pushed this button, so you're going to have to push the button if you want to turn it off at some point.
I should get a commission. I got this online from Williams-Sonoma, and it got some kind of an award from some British gardening club. I love it because it's easy on the back, easy to use. I take it, probably use a corkscrew once or twice. Just like a corkscrew, screw it all the way down to the ground, put it all the way up. You've created a column of air, and then keep doing that until the composter is just like a Swiss cheese. I do it once a week. I would do what this gentleman says. He's obviously more technically astute. But for me, once a week, if I get to it, that's good enough. So anyway, something like this, and it's really easy on the back. A whole lot easier than a shovel or a pitchfork if you have a big compost pile.
Yeah. Definitely bring air into your pile. Use corkscrew. Turn your pile at least once a week. Once a week is a good rule of thumb, generally. Okay. Here's another example. You can bring air into your compost pile. Suppose it had PVC pipe with some holes in it. Brings air into the pile. Okay. Proper moisture. Moisture content about 40 to 60%. What does this mean to you? It means if you take your hands and you put it in your compost pile, if you squeeze it and let go, the proper moisture content will mean that it will conform to the shape of your hands, okay? And to the shape of your fist, okay? That's what I call the sandcastle test, okay? Obviously, you try to build a sandcastle on the beach. Too much water, it's going to turn into a runny mess. Too little water, it's going to crumble. You have to find the golden mean, and the golden mean is 40 to 60%. Okay, so that's what proper moisture content means for your compost pile. Okay, any questions about that? Okay.
What does that mean? Yeah, you go by the texture of the soil. You're not going to put a moisture meter in there. Maybe some of you are, but you're probably not going to get a meter and determine if it's between 40 and 60%. Just squeeze your dirt, and when you let it go, see if it kind of keeps the shape of your hand.
And how often do you do that?
Well, you could do it every week when you turn it. Is a good rule of thumb. Honestly, New Jersey gets very even rainwater. We get almost an inch a week, except for when it's not getting an inch a week. That's when you have to go check your compost. And if it's getting too much rain, there's only so much you can do to dry out your compost.
So I'm going to power through these slides where you know what that. Okay. Passive composting, very simple. It's just a static compost pile. It's the kind that I had in my backyard. You just put material on there and you just let it wait. The benefits of this is that it's extremely easy. It's the easiest type of composting you can do. The downside, it's going to take upwards of 2 years for a compost pile like this to turn into usable compost. Okay. Now I'm going to get, hello sir, how are you?
Hi.
Now I'm going to talk a little bit about managed composting. First, sheet composting and soil incorporation. This is best used at the end of the season in preparation for the next season. You put plant material on your garden bed or in a trench, and you turn it and you cover it with the soil. And over a period of months, it will degrade and it will create nutrient-rich soil for that particular garden bed. This is good if you have small plots of garden soil that you want for your house. Anything to add? Okay.
Oh, excuse me.
Yes.
So you could take what's left over of a tomato plant and sort of chop it up and do that with it?
Yes, you could do it. Yeah, you could do it at the end of the season. Just mix it into your soil and then leave it for the winter, and then the spring, you're going to have rich material in the soil. Just make sure you dice it up very fine. Vermicomposting. I was told that there's a young man here today who...
Not so young.
Okay. Well, want to talk a little bit about your experience with vermicomposting?
Yeah. Well, if anyone wants to take a look, we have our bin right here with all our little pets with us. Yeah, we feed it about a pound of vegetable waste a week. Initially, we had some problems with insects. We learned how to deal with it. We keep the moisture down based on, we don't put, what we would say, some of the fresh fruit wastes that had a lot of moisture in it. They caused the moisture problem.
Yeah, eventually what I did was when I have created or produced a lot more house vegetable scrap that I can't feed them all, I actually chopped them up and stuck them in the freezer and take them out and squeeze the water out.
Yeah.
And then put them in, and that speed up the process, the decomposition process.
Yeah. That is actually something I forgot to add.
Our freezer's full of
vegetable. Yeah, you put your vegetables in your freezer.
Yeah.
And what happens, vegetables has the hard walls, the cellulose walls. That's why if you break, say, celery in half, it'll make that cracking sounds. If you freeze it, what happens at the microscopic level is that when the water freezes, there are ice crystals which pierce the walls. So when you defrost it, it becomes much more mushy, much more malleable. So that's an excellent thing. I forgot to add about that. Thank you for that. Yeah. So we first started this about 3 years ago.
Yes.
And then the last 2 years, and then also.
And then the last year we have friends who had a community garden in Duke Farm, so they had a lot of fresh bed, and it wasn't as nicely prepared. So I donated a lot of my worms, and the rest of them just weren't very happy. So this batch we just started about 3 weeks ago. Because I figure it's a season again, you're gonna get a lot of fresh vegetables, and I need somewhere to put these instead of just throw them in a garbage can.
You buy the worms online, $20 for 1,000 red wigglers. They're called.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, and then you can easily find this homemade. We just drill holes, not too big, on the bottom, on the sides, so they can aerate. And the original, I covered them up. Then we found out that it's not enough air circulation, so I learned through experience. And somebody just said, you just shred newspapers. A lot of us have shredders at home, so I just shred newspapers and put about an inch and a half on top, so they don't come out and they don't escape. Once in a blue moon, you'll find one that escaping, but they're dried up.
That's kept outside?
I keep them inside my house.
It's
Just
right
that
in our
big
kitchen.
bin? I mean,
Yeah.
like in a garage?
No, it's in our kitchen.
It's just there. It doesn't have smell.
Okay.
It doesn't smell.
It's in the kitchen.
We put this in our kitchen. It's on the floor next to we have a spot
Refrigerator.
next to the refrigerator. It's out of the way.
It
There's
doesn't.
no odor.
It doesn't smell. If it starts smell, it means that you put too much food and that doesn't have
okay.
time to break it down.
But you could leave it outside, I assume.
No.
Well, not in freezing weather. As long as it's
above freezing.
Comfortable temperature.
I think a heated garage would be okay.
Right.
Right.
Or maybe even
In the basement, it'd be fine.
basement, yeah. And there is, I think everybody probably saw one of the 4 composters that are available through the county. There is a Worm Ranch, the Wrigley Worm Ranch, which is up here on this table. It's basically a fancier, schmancier model of what those guys made themselves. You can see it's got the different layers to hold the different components, and so that's one of the ones that if you wanted to be adventurous and do your thing inside that way, you can take advantage of that.
The only thing is you can't put any citrus fruit skins.
Worms are a little picky.
Yeah, worms are a little pickier.
Yeah. So worms, they prefer not to eat citrus fruits. You know, if that's the only thing that they have to eat, then obviously they're gonna do their best. But I mean, you probably should. And obviously, that's what I thought about. I didn't include this in last week's lecture, but if you have it in your home, your kitchen, if you put a lot of fruit waste in there, it might mold over and smell. If you put too much in there. So
And the reason that we're interested in conventional compost while we're here is because, like I said, this handles about a pound a week, and that may sound like a lot, but just the 2 of us, we make a lot more just in the vegetable scraps than a pound a week, probably 2 or even 3 pounds a week. So we'd like to utilize that.
good, thank you. Here's another version of vermicomposting worm tower. You put this directly into your garden bed, and the great thing about this is that it creates basically a home for your worms that will not only be inside the little tower, but they can migrate laterally in your garden bed and will help your vegetables. Okay, wire mesh, very easy design, 3 cubic feet or 5 cubic feet, whatever you may have. But you can see the little chicken wire will allow air and some moisture to get into that little area. Wood pallets. The great thing about wood pallets is that you can go to a big box store and you can probably steal a few of these, and you can literally make a compost bin for free, basically. And I should make an estimate, sure. But another thing I should talk about, if you have these types of bins, you should put a little bit of soil from your backyard and mix it in with your composting material, with your leaves, with your kitchen scraps. The reason you do that is because all the beneficial bacteria and fungi which do the work of the composting is already in your soil. So if you add that to your pile, you're going to get a head start on getting that. Yes?
Perhaps there's no concern about preservatives that they use on the wood or
That's a
anything like
good
that?
question. Don't use pressure-treated wood or wood that has been treated with a particular stain that you may see, because that chemicals may seep into the compost material. When you put it in your compost bin, it will be absorbed to your plants, and if you eat those plants, it might not be a good thing. So don't use pressure-treated wood as a general rule. There are certain plastics which they make which look like wood and they will last for a long time. You can certainly use some of those materials. Do you have anything to add?
I don't think most pallets are treated. Obviously, you can't be 100% sure, but you're going to see colors on them if they were treated. That'll help you, but they're not. These are just to hold gear. They're not paying for that, right? For their pallets.
Hold on one second. Actually, so you can see me because I'm kind of little. A lot of pallets that are shipped here from overseas are pressure treated specifically because they can't have pests or anything. The EPA is real big on that. So you do just want to make sure you know the source of your pallets. If it's something that started out domestically and was shipped domestically, it's probably going to be fine. But there's all kinds of consumer goods in this country, and I know because I import some, that come from Asian countries, and they absolutely use pressure-treated wood on the pallet. So you just want to bear that in mind and request the source of where the pallet comes from.
Is there any way to tell from the pallet?
I have no idea. I don't really actually look too much at them.
You might not be able to find that out, so that's kind of an issue.
Yeah, that's actually something I didn't know. Thank you. Yeah, so domestic pallets, I guess are fine. Okay, 3-bin system. This is just modified design of the earlier one. This is very popular, especially if you have a larger garden or a larger lawn, because you can essentially turn your composting into a conveyor belt system. Okay? You put your degrading material in the center. As it decays, move it to the center, and then as it cures, you move it into the third, where it will continue to decompose into a very rich humus material. Okay, you can build one yourself, of course, and there are also kits which you can purchase, not through here, but if you look online, you can find some different products. So this is a very excellent system that you can use.
Must have a cover. You don't need a cover.
You don't need a cover, but many compost bins and many composter different methods use a bin for many different reasons. The most important is that it helps regulate moisture content. If you have a pile that's out in your lawn and it rains for a long time, it's going to obviously soak up a lot of moisture. If you have cover on it, you can regulate how much moisture is going to get in there. Also, it may help with certain people if they're concerned about rodents or any other animal life getting in there. I have a passive compost pile in my backyard in the corner of my yard, and for a long time I wasn't turning it. And what happened was a family of chipmunks made their home in that little compost pile. So much so that my neighbor's cat decided to make my compost pile its dining room. So if you lids will help. Hello, how are you? Lids will help regulate some of that, some of those pests, and also moisture content. So that's one of the reasons why I have it. Any other questions with that?
And you did comment on the last point that you're saying you could turn out compost in 5 to 12 weeks out of a system like that?
Oh yes. If you continually turn it and continually add to it, proper moisture, proper air, proper circulation, things like that, you can have very, very rapid turnover during your growing season.
That's great.
Okay. Yeah. So this is an excellent method. So yeah, this goes back to your point with different times for composting. So this is one method is very rapid. You can use garbage pails and plastic bins. This is very similar design to the earth machine. In here, I don't know if you want to talk about the earth machine at all. Or?
No, I mean, it's one of many possibilities. I think that's the important thing to mention, but that's what we have available, and certainly I think it's probably a good middle ground that it helps you move it along pretty quickly.
Yes. So the great things about these is you can pop it in there, put the lid in there, and if you have the proper conditions, the microorganisms will create the heat, which will make it to a hot pile, and it will cause rapid turnover. And I don't know if you can see on the side here, there's a little trap door on the bottom, which you can scoop out some of the finished material. This method, how much would you think the duration do you think for finished
Mine
compost?
takes a while because I don't turn it as often as I'm supposed to, so it's up to you. Again, if you stay on top of turning it, it shouldn't be much longer. But and then nature, as it gets through its different stages, don't add to it. Once it starts composting, you can't keep adding fresh material. So if you go out and turn your pile and find that your son has once again put all the corn husks in there, sets you back quite a bit.
So you have this one?
I have one very much like that.
So how do you turn it?
I've been turning it with a pitchfork. Mine does
You
come
open it up and
apart. Mine does come apart though for using at the end of the season, but generally I just go in through the top and turn it. Yeah, this doesn't come apart into two pieces. Mine has a door like this, not as nice as this. Mine can actually just take it apart at the end of the season. There's the clips.
I've seen some that you actually roll on the ground. Do you know about anything about those?
That will work. It's a great way to turn them. It doesn't work in this case. This doesn't have a bottom.
Oh.
So you can't roll this. You just make a mess.
Pick it up. And,
It would be the same as me
well, that's how you
opening
turn it. You
one.
pick it up and then you have a pile and
You could, yeah.
move it next to the door. And
You could do that, although, you know, after they get stuck into the ground and the grass kind of grows over them a little bit, it can get tricky.
George, can I interject for just a second?
Yes.
First of all, I want to thank everybody for coming. I'm Jennifer, I'm the Borough Administrator, so thank you. I'm so happy to see a crowd. So this is my little container that I keep on my counter. And it has, these were some like herbs that I bought at the store that I didn't water quick enough. Strawberries, eggshells, avocado peels, onions, coffee grinds. And I'm very lazy, so mostly because I have like no time whatsoever. But this is my hummus, and I honestly just throw all that stuff in a big pile behind a fence and just let it sit there for a couple of years, and then when I'm really motivated, I go out and I just flip it around. I haven't gotten any pests in it. I have like a little safety fence around it. So this is like great brownish, darkish soil, and it's I put it on my front lawn after I thatch my lawn. Put it in my planting beds, and it's a great fertilizer. I don't have to buy any fertilizer or any mulch, and I don't have to put any pesticides on my lawn because this has all the nutrients that I need for the soil. So since I know there's a big pesticide-free movement in Metuchen also, this is a great way to get away from the use of pesticides, which can cause damage to kids, okay, medically.
So there are tumblers. Everyone's probably familiar with this. Probably just power through this. And some ways to use your compost. Obviously, incorporate it into your garden bed. You can put it around your shrubs because as rainwater will come down, the nutrients will soak into the soil. For your lawns, yes.
So for something like that, for the rainwater to get in, will it get in, or do you need to leave the lid off?
Well, I suppose you can leave the lid off. You probably have to use a hose if you want very exacting.
This one doesn't have a rainwater collection system on top of them. Some of them do have a way of collecting the water and letting it drip in. This one doesn't seem to. I'm looking through the instructions to see what they have to say about it. But yeah, I think you'd have to stay on top of keeping this moist.
Yeah, excellent question. Yeah, so, and then for your lawns, if you have a seeder or like a fertilizer, one of those little carts, you can put your compost, bring it through a sieve, so that's very fine. You can put it in that little cart, and you can drive it, and you can spread that compost directly onto your lawn, especially in the beginning of the season. It's very beneficial for your lawn. Okay. So that's essentially my lecture. Obviously, there's a lot of information in these slides, which I had to gloss over for the interest of time. But if anyone has any questions, you have anything to say?
If you were starting a new bed, like I did a raised bed, and I thought, okay, I'll use my compost to fill it, that wasn't ideal, I realized. What's the ratio of compost to soil that you would say if you were going to do something like fill a raised bed?
In my own raised beds, I usually go 50-50. That's a good rule of thumb for that. I know some people who put all compost in their raised beds. The reason you don't do that is because compost on its own is not a soil replacement. It is a soil amendment. It is a soil helper, but it's not a soil replacement. So when you put it in your garden beds, it's going to give the nutrients for your plants, but in itself it lacks the beneficial qualities that proper soil that you find in your topsoil will have. I glossed over the slide, but maybe we should go over a little bit. proper soil composition is about 50% silicates with 25% water and 25% empty space. And the reason is that you need that empty space for oxygen and room for microorganisms to grow and move in. So if you have about 50-50 ratio, you're going to have both the water and oxygen retention of topsoil with the nutrient-rich material of your humus.
What is a good source of like carbon for if you start, say, in the growing season? Because mostly what you'll have then will be green or table scraps. So is there something you can add in, or do you have to start like in the fall?
In the beginning, I'm sure you're gonna. Do you have anything? This paper.
I have to prune my shrubs right now, so I've got to say the best thing to do is to chop up that woody stuff nice and fine and use that as your carbon. Remember, if you keep a shrub the same size, you got to take it back about a third every year. So
You must have some leaves somewhere stuck under some bushes somewhere that you can find. Steal some from your neighbor.
and paper.
Really?
Oh, paper. Okay. If you have safe paper, then
Great, thank you.
How much paper can you use? Like, say you get Star Ledger delivered every day, and you get the Times on the weekend. That's a lot of paper.
Right.
Can you actually recycle all that paper, or is that going to be too much? I mean, is there a ratio of how much paper to in a compost?
Well,
I guess you need to shred it. You could just.
Oh yeah, definitely shred it. Yeah, because otherwise, you're just gonna have a pulpy mess. But yeah, I mean, on one of the earlier slides, I said proper ratio, probably 2 to 3 parts carbon-rich materials. Newspaper would be part of that. To 1% green materials, kitchen scraps, wall clippings, things like that. How much paper is too much paper? Is a good question.
Well, it holds a lot of moisture, so you're going to have a pile that stays wet. If you're seeing it be turning blue and fungus, that's too much moisture, and you've got to put something in there that's going to help you drain. I like pistachio seed shells.
Pistachio shells? You serious?
They're really great for your compost. You make little air pockets all throughout it, because they're little cups. So. I just put them out in like family.
And you could just tear up the paper by hand, and it doesn't have to be finely. And pine needles. How long does pine needles take to decompose?
How long did it take to decompose? I've never put pine needles in my compost just because I don't have pine tree. But I mean, I suppose it wouldn't take too long than other materials.
They don't last long under my azaleas.
Oh, okay.
I thought they were a little bit more stubborn.
Yeah, I think they would, right?
Yeah.
Under the trees, they pile up.
I think they're probably a little more stubborn. I think you want to probably play around a little bit with that before you put too many, or chop them up some.
On a side note, pine needles are very good mulch for, especially for vegetable beds. So you can use it for that.
Okay.
You might have said this before, but is there a place where we can see the slideshow online, the whole thing, if we miss the slides?
Yes, if you give me your email, or I can probably email you, and you can email it out to Jen Mayer. You can get the digital copy of this. So.
I just wanted to throw in my 2 cents that, I think what's wonderful is these guys gave us tremendous insights into figuring out what might be going on with your piles as you experiment with your piles, what to do if something, the paper's turning blue or green, you're putting too much in, it's too wet, it's too dry, it's too carbony, it's too nitrogenate. But the beautiful thing about compost is it's not an exact science. It will work if you leave it out for 2 years, like Jen was saying, in the backyard, or like you have your pile that might take a couple of years, or if you want to do a high-tech, real exact science thing where you're churning it out constantly. But don't get freaked out about it. It'll work, and as long as you're not doing something grossly out of bounds, it's not going to be stinky that all the neighbors will be complaining and calling the town. And we definitely encourage you to try and make sure you are using it, especially, again, as I think we said to probably several individuals before, if you're taking advantage of this offer, to take one of the composters. What we are asking in return is that we get some feedback from you, so we get some information from you about how you're doing with your piles. We get some pictures of your nice worm-rich piles with your kids playing in them and throwing it out into the garden, and things that we can give back to the DEP to show how successful it was, things that we can give to the town fathers and mothers to say how successful a project this is, to take some of the load out of the waste stream, that it's an effective way of thinking about managing our waste stream cost effective in these times where costs are a big thing to think about. So it all fits together, and we encourage you all to not be scared, away from thinking it's too complicated or anything like that.
Thank you for that. That was important.
Yeah, Tommy was going to yell in the back there. If not, he was going to yell about meat or something like that.
Yeah, just a couple things. If you see a compost container online, maybe one of the ones that one of the gentlemen mentioned that you can roll across your backyard. If I have enough of a demand, I can order from a different company instead of getting them from Middlesex County. So let me know. My email is on the borough website, jmayer@metuchen.com, and I would, all we ask, like Mark said, is just to get your feedback. Send me a picture of what you're doing. I have a grant for $25,000. I can buy at least 500 composters with that. I can buy worms for you. Just get in touch with me, whatever you want. And just in terms of the landfills, Middlesex County just put in an application to greatly increase the height and mass of their landfill because they're running out of room. And rather than have that last 15 years, as we start to pull things out of the waste stream, maybe it can last 30 years. We appreciate what Middlesex County does for us. We appreciate the fact that we have a landfill, but we can do our part to lessen that impact. It's also not good for the environment. There's methane that comes out of the landfill. There's toxins that get into the soil and into our water system. So by composting, you help with that also. Also what will happen down the road is that as we run out of landfill here, we're going to have to pay to get it trucked out to Pennsylvania, Ohio, and that's going to be a real burden on the taxpayers because you're going to have to pick up that additional municipal cost. So we're trying to get out ahead of it and be smart about it and environmentally smart about it instead of waiting till the end. And I just want to have Dorothy Rasmussen, our councilwoman, come up, who's in charge of the Green Team and the Environmental Commission and Shade Tree and does all that stuff. So.
Hi, I just walked in, so I'm not sure what was said already, but what I would like to say is one of the other initiatives that we're trying to do, and we're trying to change the way people think. We're not making things mandatory for people. We don't want to be like Big Brother telling you what to do, but we want to explain why you should do something. Not that you have to do it, but why you want to do it. And not just for now, but for the future of Metuchen, for the future of our community, for the future of our world. So another thing that we would like to have people try to do is mulch your grass clippings, because everything that doesn't go into the landfill is going to save us money. It's going to be more like, be more conservative about what we put out there, because there's only so much world left. There's only so much earth left. And things that we think will never affect us, or everyone thinks in the now, we have to think about the future. And that's exactly what we're trying to do. Last year we really kind of wanted to pass an ordinance about grass clippings, but then we thought, let's let people get educated. Let's get people to realize it's really the right thing to do. And if you think about your children and your grandchildren and future generations, what kind of world do you want to leave for them? You know what I mean? We want to leave a world that they can live in and enjoy the way we're enjoying our life, because things change. The world is changing. I remember when I was back in school in the 70s, we used to get this little magazine when I was in grammar school, and they talked about recycling and plastics and all of that. And you never thought it would happen. You read about it and you would just think, oh, no one knows what they're talking about. And now so many of the things that I read as a child in the 70s, so many things are coming true. And people just, have to wake up and say, this is really the right thing to do. So I just urge you, whatever programs we come up with, or if you need more information, my contact information also is on the website. Contact me. I'll give you my phone number. We'll sit down. We'll talk about it. I'll come to your house if I have to.
She'll mow your lawn for you with her electric lawn
Yeah, tell us
mower.
about your lawn.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. And I just want to say that I wasn't that educated a year ago when we were talking about this. And when we brought up the thought of mulching grass, I needed a new mower anyway, and I don't like gas mowers. I don't know what to do with them. They're very difficult for me to maneuver. So I decided I would buy myself a battery-powered mulching mower. You cannot even believe how great it is. I put batteries in it. It sounds like a hairdryer. I walk along with it, and it mulches. So when I'm done, there's no picking stuff up and putting it in the bag. There's no dragging the bag out to the sidewalk. There's no wondering, is it going to rain and my bag will dissolve and then the grass will be all over the place and I have to do more work? It is just so easy. And I just would urge people to check it out. Go online, research battery-powered mowers, and go look at them and try them out and find one that you like. And when you have to replace a gas mower, go for it. Your neighbors will love you because when you're mowing, they won't know when you're mowing. And it's just nice. And you're not walking behind, breathing fumes in. Imagine. You're breathing fumes in. Who thinks about it when you are mowing your lawn that you're breathing in fumes? And we also had our anti-idling resolution passed where we're trying to get people, especially maybe people picking up from the train station and parents waiting to get kids from school. When you're idling there with your engine running, all of the kids around you, maybe kids outside playing in aftercare, are all breathing in heavier amounts of fumes than they would if they were just walking down the street or in their neighborhood. So these are all the things that we're trying to do in Metuchen to keep you healthier, to make our community healthier, to save you money, and just make the world better. So I urge you to kind of partner with us and we'll help you with whatever you need.